Hi everyone, it's Miriam with a Y. In a previous video, linked for you at the top and in the description box below, we made this flower bangle on a clear background. Let's make something similar in an even easier way on a subtle, translucent background. For the background, I'm going to work with rice paper for a couple of reasons. Rice paper is strong and it keeps its shape, unlike, let's say, tissue paper, which could kind of get a little mushy as you work with it. Rice paper comes in endless designs and patterns. It becomes beautifully translucent in resin, and it has an interesting fiber texture, which can often show up in your resin. So I looked through my more botanical themed papers. Many would work just fine. A couple could add some interesting elements like tiny leaves or berries, even some geometric patterns. Some had bold colors, which would definitely remain prominent even when submerged in resin. But I ultimately picked one that I thought would work, with a few colors that would pop, but overall it would be as subtle as I want for this. Something that would not compete with the flowers that I want to add. For this bangle, I chose the oval mold from the Little Windows mold set of 4 bangles. And I love this set so much. I cannot say enough good things about it. The accompanying guide that comes with any mold that you get includes templates for the length and width of any insert that one might want to embed in any of the 4 mold shapes. So if you make a strip using that template, that strip will fill the full height of the bangle, and if you meet the 2 ends of the strip, it'll be the complete circumference of the bangle, so that if you made something to embed in the bangle, after meeting the 2 ends, it would fit in the mold perfectly. So what I did was cut out the template in a piece of paper to make a window of that template that I could move around over my pieces of rice paper to isolate a section that I wanted to use. It kind of made it easier for me to really sort of block out what I wanted to use and to really see it well. And I opted for a section that would show bits of red, purple, and green, even when fully wet, so to speak, but without being too busy. Now to cut the strip I needed. I marked the lines on the back of the paper with just a pencil. Now, if you have this type of paper trimmer, it's going to give you a ripped edge look to your rice paper because the blade is not going to slide through as easily as it would through like regular copy paper, because it's going to keep hitting the fibers built into the rice paper. So it's going to give you more of like a ripped edge look, which is kind of cool if you like that look. So I'm going to use it here just to show you that option. But if you prefer just a regular straight cut, use regular scissors or more of a guillotine type paper cutter like this one. The edge of your bangle is totally a personal aesthetic. Choose whatever look makes you happy. Now, when I made the clear background bangle, I'd had to make myself a bit of a box to contain the resin layout that eventually submerged into the mold. In this case, things are even easier. All I need here is a piece of cardboard, a bit longer than my rice paper strip. And I just need to cover that piece of cardboard in something like a trash bag or packing tape. In this case, I used both so that I could make that piece of cardboard a little less brown first. Next step, picking flowers to coordinate with my strip. You can, of course, do the reverse, which would be to pick your flowers first and then pick paper to match. The order in which you do this, it doesn't matter, so do whatever works best for you. Very often when you buy flowers online, they come in coordinating sets like the ones that I've pulled out here. So you're likely to find more than one type of bloom in a set that can work nicely within a bangle. because they're already kind of color coordinated within a set, a packed set of flowers. So very often 1 or 2 flower sets might be all you need. Or of course you may be making something that's all just one color, so just one set will do you just fine. Or if you're making something that's all different colors, look for multicolor sets rather than these more monochromatic sets like the ones that I've pulled out here. The options online are really endless, so have fun with, the sort of shopping for flowers. This is where you really get to have fun designing. Now, I tend to pull out way more blooms than I need because I'm of the mind that if I can have more options in front of me, it'll be easier to design and plan. No, what it really ends up being is I have more things to put away when I'm done. But at the time, I feel like, oh, I could use this. Oh, and I could use this too. So, have fun, but try to rein it in a little. Yeah, so anyway, don't mind me. Once I have my first blooms ready, it's time to pretty much trap them in position with resin. I've got a very small amount of resin mixed up, less than 10 milliliters. For that, I've chosen Brilliant Resin from Little Windows because it's awesome for mixing tiny amounts like this and still getting reliable curing. Not every resin is good at that. At this point in the game, I was very confident that I would no longer be touching resin at all, which is why you do not see me wearing gloves. If you will be in direct contact with uncured resin, even non-toxic resin like this one, please protect yourself. I am saturating the rice paper with resin, letting it soak all the way through to the other side. Once that's done, I can start positioning blooms and greenery. Now, along the way, I'll see that some things don't work well. Maybe they end up looking too bright or too dark, too big, whatever. Play with this until you're happy. You've got a good 45 minutes of work time. So move things around, audition things in various places. Decide what elements from the rice paper you want to highlight and what things on the rice paper you're willing to cover up. As I progressed, I opted for lots of tiny white and pink segments of Queen Anne's lace, and I chose red and light purple blooms. I thought that that combination would be really pretty with a predominantly greenish background. Once that first layer of flower segments was down, I wanted to add a few overlapping parts and parts that seemed to be, floating at a different level. For that, I let my leftover resin set up a bit, kind of cure a little bit in the cup so that it was thicker and less runny. And then I poured some of this thicker resin down on top of what I'd already done. So this thicker resin would run less and wouldn't kind of seep in as much. And what's nice about this paper strip is that it kind of contains the resin in one main area. Yes, some resin may run out of the lines, so to speak, but it'll be very easy to cut off any extra once it cures, and you'll see that a bit later. In the newly added thicker resin, I placed more flowers and leafy bits, and this kind of gave this piece kind of a hint of depth. And then, once I was happy with everything, I covered this up and left it to cure for at least 10 hours. Now, keep in mind, this might look really scary right now. But have faith. Fear not. Just trust me, okay? All right. Okay, so roughly 12 hours later, I checked on this and found it to be cured to the touch. So no stickiness whatsoever. So now it's time to remove our strip. Now, if you've got packing tape down, it's particularly easy to remove this just by lifting up a corner with your nail or something and then pulling the whole thing up like a fancy Band-Aid. Now, as you can see, we've got lots of excess stuff outside the lines, so to speak. Because this resin is so bendy at this stage of the game, it is very easy to cut with regular household scissors. So snip away. So here I am cutting away runaway resin and any botanicals that stuck out beyond the lines. Now, if you were after the torn edge look to the end of the edge of your rice paper, this is what it would look like in resin. But I would prefer a straight edge since that's what I have on the other side. So I'm going to trim this accordingly. Really, it doesn't matter. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. And then in the end, how cute is this? I'm already getting a good idea of how my finished bangle is going to look. With my strip fully cut, I do a dry fit in the mold. I can see that I've got some overlap space, so with a couple of drops of crazy glue or super glue or cyanoacrylate, whatever you choose to call it, I glue the two ends together and make this a continuous loop. Then, to get a little fancy, I'm going to hide the overlap where the two ends meet, and I'll do that by gluing a flower and leaves over the seam. And I'll do that using the crazy glue here too. And then once that fully dries, I am ready to add this strip to my mold and fill the mold with resin. According to the guide, it takes roughly 30 mils of resin to fill the oval mold. I will need less than that since the flower strip takes up space already. I probably only need about 22 to 24 milliliters of resin, but better to have a bit more on hand than a bit less. So I opted to mix up 27 milliliters. I've marked off 18 milliliters and 27 milliliters on my mixing cup because Brilliant Resin from Little Windows is a 2-to-1 ratio resin. So I am going to make all my parts 9 milliliters. So I need 2 parts of part A, so that's 18 milliliters, and then 1 part of part B, so 9 milliliters. So 18 plus 9 is 27. That's how I got my 2 marks on my cup. Now here's another tip for today. Rather than bend down to try to see the marks on the outside of a mixing cup while you're filling it, just look down into the inside of the cup at the lines as you're filling it. It is much easier and actually more accurate if you kind of do it that way. Then after pouring, we've got a couple of minutes of mixing. And one of the nice things about this particular resin is it's very low in bubbles while you're mixing it. So usually letting it sit for a couple of minutes afterwards allows the few bubbles that do form to rise and pop on their own, or you can just scoop them out, or you can just let them be and accept some bubbles in your piece, which I sometimes do because sometimes I like a bubble or two. I don't know, I kind of like the look of them. I'm kind of weird that way, I admit it. With my resin all mixed, I'm pouring some into the mold, and I'm just partially filling the mold in. I personally don't mind a few bubbles here and there in pieces like this because I kind of think they sparkle a little. And like, in a little flower piece like this, a little sparkle dot here or there I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably different. Don't judge. I just don't mind. So I did not go crazy chasing bubbles. But my next step is to coat the band with resin. And I'm doing that to dramatically minimize introducing more bubbles into the piece when you drop the band in. Remember, the band is not a smooth, slick band of resin. It's kind of bumpy and, it's all knobby and stuff because it's got some flowers that stick up here, some that stick down there. So it's got a lot of nooks and crannies. So if you just push something like that into resin, it's going to take down a bunch of bubbles in those nooks and crannies. Now, I said I don't mind bubbles, a couple, but I don't want a ton. So what I'm doing is coating the band with resin first and filling in all those nooks and crannies with resin. And then I will slide the band into the resin that's in the mold. And that will dramatically cut down on any bubbles being added to the piece. And then once I'm done, I will continue filling the mold. And my goal here is to fill the mold to the tippy top for a flat edge to match the edge that's down at the bottom of the mold. And then once that's done, I will let this cure for at least 24 hours before demolding. And now it's time to demold this botanical beauty. Well, at least I hope it's going to be. And the first thing I'm doing is using a piece of tape to remove any little stray bits of resin before demolding so that those little stray bits don't fall back into the mold after I remove the bangle, so that the mold is nice and pristine for the next time I use it, which is why you see me put it away in a bag right away. And then once that's done, now I get to check out the fruits of our labor. As always, I am blown away by the shine that I get from these molds. It's like looking at a piece of glass. I mean, this really, to me, looks like a glass bangle. The subtle background ended up being just what I wanted. Now, if you wanted a more prominent background, you could use more opaque paper, or you could double up the back of the rice paper with thicker white paper. You can use fabric instead, or paint the back of the paper with a solid color. Just get creative. Have fun with this. And let me know in the comments what thoughts you have. Have you gotten these amazing molds yet? And if not, what are you waiting for? They are wonderfully priced. They actually fit real adults, as opposed to so many of the molds that you find online these days for bangles. I don't understand who those are designed for. I've gotten quite a few of them, and they're all designed for children or really young teens, but not for real women. So these molds actually fit adults, and they're fabulously made. Links for everything I used and a coupon code for anything you order from Little Windows are in the description box below the video. So, go let your creative nature shine. Have fun. Make beautiful things. Stay safe. See you soon. Bye now.